All right, thanks so much for having me here, guys. Just a quick introduction. I'm slightly obsessed with quality score. I have a kid, and that's just a little bit about me. Guys, so it's really great to be here because, like, I almost missed my. I came here from Boston this morning on a 4 o'clock flight this morning, and I almost missed my flight. My animal almost died. Anyways, I'm just going to be running a little contest here. Let's try to get some tweets going here. Just include the hashtag SearchFest, my handle there, and I'm going to give you a $25 gift card for the funniest tweet, like the funniest tip or the best tip. Okay? So I'll announce the winner by the end of the session. All right. I have 100 slides here. I'm going to try to get through this in about 29 minutes. So, you can just write down the URL there and download the slides later. All right. So the title of the presentation is it's sort of the top 10 hacks of all time. If you've seen me do this presentation before, the first two are kind of the same, but I've updated all the others. So it has all new materials other than the first two. I have to start with this presentation at sort of like quality score, because that really is the biggest way to hack AdWords. It's through quality score. So basically, what you need to know is that there's this AdWords auction, and every time someone does a search on Google, Google has to figure out in real time sort of what order to put the different ads in and how much to charge the person, like how much the cost per click is. And so it's such a weird auction. It's not like eBay where you just have like a winner with the highest bid. It has to do with kind of your quality and the bid, and the combination of those two factors kind of can make it so that a lower bid, like even just $2 with a high quality score, can take the top spot. That's a very, very powerful way for smaller businesses to be nimble and kind of outmaneuver larger companies. It also has a huge impact on your cost per click. So in terms of how much you actually pay for the clicks, it's not set in stone. It has everything to do with the quality of your ad. It's inversely proportional to the quality of your ad. If you have a very high quality score, you'll get a 50% discount on that click. If you have a very, very low quality score, you'll get a 400% tax. So that's brutal. It also impacts impression share. So impression share has to do with whether or not Google even shows your ad in the first place, or not. And if you have a low impression share, it's like almost you're not even running any ad campaigns. And so basically, for every increase or decrease in quality score, you'll get an increase or decrease of impression share by roughly 9%. That's according to my internal research. I've got a couple $1 billion of ad spend that we can analyze and just reverse engineer this stuff, in case you're wondering how we get this. By the way, impression share, it's twice as important on mobile, because there's half like much fewer ad spots. So it goes to like position 4 as opposed to like position 8, 9, 10. And so quality score is super important, because if you don't even have a high quality score, your likelihood of showing up on mobile is half, and mobile is half the searches this year. We're also finding that quality score has a really big impact on the cost per conversion. So in terms of like what do you actually pay? So when I aggregate like billions of dollars of spend and try to figure out what's the cost per conversion for these clicks, the higher the quality score, the lower you pay. For every increase or decrease in 1 point for quality score, the cost per conversion changes up or down by roughly 16%. So what's the hack? The hack is to get a high quality score, obviously. But I think what you might be interested in is how do you do that? And so here's perhaps some new information for all of you, because Google, they like to keep their advertisers in the dark. They don't always say like exactly how to get a high quality score. Well, I'll tell you. Basically, in search, there's this concept of a expected click-through rate, and so it just means like if you're in the top spot, you're supposed to get a 6% click-through rate, or if you're in the third spot, you're supposed to get a 2% click-through rate. So it's kind of like what's the expected click-through rate for the different ad spots, and we're able to figure that out, because if you just average out like a few $1 billion of clicks, you can kind of figure out what the typical curve looks like, and then essentially it's a very simple formula. It just has to do with like if your ads are getting a higher click-through rate than the expected click-through rate at a given ad spot, you will have a high quality score. If your ads have a lower than expected click-through rate for any given ad position, you'll have a low quality score. So just be above average. That's all you need to do. Someone tells you, it's not possible to get high quality scores in my industry because whatever. Chances are it has more to do with his or her strategy as opposed to like Google just saying that it's not possible, because half of the people have to be above average by definition. So it's like my mutual fund guy saying like it's not possible to beat the average. Okay, so the quick recap here, it has to do with life is miserable if you're below average, basically, in AdWords. If you have a low click-through rate, you'll have a low quality score, which means your ads aren't going to get shown. If they do get shown, they're going to be at the bottom of the list. You're going to have a huge tax in terms of the cost per click, as well as a huge penalty for the cost per conversion. And the reverse is also true. Like life would be so much greater if it was the opposite. So I wanted to just kind of give you a few really cool ideas on how to hack your click-through rates then, because like getting all these benefits of quality score has to do with just raising the click-through rates of your ads, right? So this is actually really a challenging thing for a lot of SEMs, because it's really hard to know what that expected click-through rate is, right? You've got all this data in your account. It says like, oh, your click-through rate's 1%, 2%, 3%, but what they're not really telling you is like, is that any good or not? Well, there's this thing called the forest in the trees. It's kind of hard to see the forest for the trees, and basically what it means is like you see all this data in your AdWords account, but you don't really see all the other advertisers out there and how they're doing against your ads, really, because that's what matters. And so I've created a map of the forest for you here. Basically what I've done here is I've done some regressions on 500 million of AdWords spend and kind of tried to figure out what a typical click-through rate is for a different for different ad spots. And what I find is that there's a lot of variance. Like there's some that do like average, and then some that do like top 10%, top 5%. And here's the same data. I just kind of converted it into a table format. Basically, what the key takeaway here is that like there's this, I call these donkeys versus unicorns. So a donkey is like if you're below average, then life sucks. It's like you are like all those bad things that are happening to you, like your ad's not showing and you're being charged so much. That's a donkey. But then you can get to like the top 15% of ads. That would be twice the expected click-through rate. The top 5% of ads, that's 3 times the expected click-through rate. And if you can be the top 1% of ads, then you are a unicorn, because you are a rare and beautiful creature with 6 times the expected click-through rate, and they do exist. So I did wanted to give you a little bit of information about sort of like, what are these unicorns and where do they live and how can you get one for your own account? So I did some research in terms of kind of figuring out, how to get these guys and what's the, what do they eat and where do they hang out? And so basically the couple common denominators here, just to kind of summarize, one of them has to do with like the keywords that are used for these unicorns. They tend to be very commercial in nature, like high commercial intent, like toaster oven reviews or stainless steel dishwasher, like where the intent of the person doing the search is to transact some kind of a commerce, like they're looking to buy something. The opposite of this is the informational keywords, like who won the War of 1812. Like if you bought that keyword, no one would click on your ad because that's informational in nature, and they're predisposed to not even wanting to click on ads in the first place. So that's a really big thing. So I'm suggesting like maybe go light on the kind of informational keywords and double down on the higher commercial intent keywords. Another one had to do with like dynamic keyword insertion. I was kind of curious to see like what impact does dynamic keyword insertion have on your probability of being a unicorn. And of course, this is really interesting. Dynamic keyword insertion is a really easy kind of like a express ticket to the upper middle class of ads, if you will. So like as I look at sort of the the ads that are in the top 15% or 5% or above average, you have a very good shot of getting there with just by using dynamic keyword ad insertion, and that's very simple. However, when I kind of zoom into just the unicorns, the top 1%, the 6 times the click-through rate, I find that you're not going to get there with dynamic keyword insertion alone. There, it has more to do with your offer, your guarantee, what makes you different, emotional triggers, that kind of thing, and so dynamic keyword insertion, great, simple way to be above average, but not a great strategy for being the unicorn. Ad extensions, basically my research showed that, yeah, you can get a 6% increase in quality scores and click-through rates if you load up all these ad extensions, but it doesn't turn you into a unicorn just by bolting on a bunch of buttons and site links to a crappy ad. You know what I mean? It just improves it like marginally. It's like lipstick on a pig. So how do you write these unicorn ads that have the high, 10 out of 10 quality scores and 6 times the average click-through rate? And the answer is simple. It's the fact that most of the ads out there suck. So 90% of the ads out there are actually just kind of parroting each other. So here's a search for big data solutions, and you can see like I got 4 ads that are essentially saying the same thing. So I call this a AdWords jackpot because it reminds me of hitting a row of big data solutions in Vegas. See, I got 4 big data solutions, so it's an AdWords jackpot. Here's one more example. I hit a row of iPad minis. So another jackpot. Basically, so what's the alternative to these kind of AdWords jackpots where it's like that's the same thing everywhere? My friend and colleague Perry Marshall has this kind of a cool ad technique writing thing called the Swiss Army knife blade. And basically it's a structured brainstorming thing where you just, kind of put together, who's my customer, what does he love, what does he hate, what's he scared of, what does he love, that kind of thing. And you just kind of put together these little edges and try to connect the different concepts. And here's an example. It's like worst enemy husband, worst enemy mistress, who's your husband with, is he sleeping with her? Get revenge and a smile on your face right now. This is a unicorn ad that gets 6 times the expected click-through rate because everyone else sucks. And this is like this unicorn sticks out. So the key hack here is just one does not simply use the same ad as everyone else. Leverage emotional triggers to get people to click. All right, so I apologize for people who had seen those 2 sections before, but I thought they were kind of important for new people, and from here on in, it's new material. So hack number 8 has to do with quality score for Twitter and Facebook ads. So earlier I mentioned I was kind of really into quality score. Well, did you know that quality score exists on other ad platforms other than Google and Bing? And they most certainly do, though they don't really talk about it very much. Like especially Twitter, it doesn't even mention quality score anywhere on their site. Facebook just started mentioning it just a week ago. But basically, I definitely think that pay-per-click advertising is more than just search advertising, right? It's all these different forms of advertising like LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, and they're all governed by similar quality score concepts. And this is a little hard to see, but what you can see is this is a Twitter ad campaigns. I can get engagements for as low as like 1 or 2 or 3 or 8 cents per engagement. So that's like replies, favorites, retweets, that kind of thing. Provided that I can get my engagement rates for the things that I'm trying to promote, like my app or my tweets or whatever I'm trying to promote, if I can get those engagement rates like 7, 20, 36, 68%, the higher the engagement rate, the lower the cost per engagement. So that's pretty interesting. Here's some research that I just did a couple weeks ago, just putting those numbers on a chart, and you can kind of see the relationship. It's pretty interesting. And Facebook, they've always had a quality score. They just never really showed you it. And just very recently, like a week ago, they started showing you the numbers in your account. So I think that's really interesting. So the hack here is basically everyone should be doing promoted things on Facebook and Twitter, but not promoting everything. Like, because you don't want to have. It's like you get such a bargain if you're promoting like stuff that's really resonating, and it's such a pain in the butt if you're trying to promote something that no one's interested in. So just you should be promoting your best stuff basically. Guys, one of the cool things about social advertising as opposed to search advertising, like PPC, has to do with this notion of paid promotion yields organic exposure. So what the heck is this all about? Well, this is just a tweet that I promoted. I just put $20 to it, literally. I didn't even target it. I just did quick promote. So you can see that blue bars, those are the number of impressions for my tweet. And typically in Twitter, they have a very short half-life. So like within each bar is like 1 hour. Like within like 5 or 6 hours, it died off, okay? The number of impressions. But then see those yellow bars there? That's the promoted impressions, right? So by spending $20 just to get a few more promoted impressions for this tweet, boom, I get all that extra blue stuff underneath those yellow bars. So it's not a bad deal. You spend a few dollars on promoting stuff in social, and you get organic stuff for free. Because like if you buy a retweet, then the people that guy's followers see that retweet for free. So that's kind of an interesting concept. You don't get that in AdWords. You have to pay for every click. It's not like you don't when you pay for a click, you don't get like 3 clicks free. But you get that in social. I think that's pretty interesting. I'm down to number 7 here. The others are shorter. The people-based marketing. So what the heck is people-based marketing? Well, it's different. So like search marketing and remarketing, like we know about these. Did you know you have no idea who you're marketing to? So it's like in search, it's somebody who searched for a keyword that you're interested in. And if it's remarketing, it's someone who visited your website, but you don't know if it's like Johnny or Sally, or you have no idea. So what's really interesting, the trend here is towards this notion of people-based advertising. So in Facebook, you can create these custom audiences, like upload a list of phone numbers of your customers or emails of your customers. It's really, really interesting. Same thing with Twitter. You can upload like Twitter IDs or phone numbers and emails and come up with custom lists. And this is really radically changing this notion of pay-per-click marketing from being something that was very anonymous to something that's super, super targeted. And so the hack here, in terms of like the PPC hack, is to think about this people-based advertising as more like email marketing. So like the types of things that you can do in email marketing, you can now do in PPC marketing. Like, think of all the limitations of your email marketing. Like, oh, I can't do an email blast because I just did one last week. Well, that doesn't apply to ads. There's no limit. You can have us promote something tomorrow if you promoted something today. That doesn't matter. What about unsubscribes? You can't unsubscribe from these ads. Et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's like email marketing is the most powerful, it's the most widely used marketing channel of all small businesses, and this is even better than that. It's not free, but it overcomes all the problems associated with it. I just wanted to give you a quick example of kind of like the power of people-based marketing. Essentially, it opens up a ton of exciting new use cases for what you can do with PPC marketing. Here's a crazy example, guys. It has to do with content marketing. So like it has to do with how does stuff go viral? Like, like I don't know if anyone of you does blogging and all this stuff. Like maybe you're doing that with hopes that like it gets picked up in the Wall Street Journal or that goes viral or something like that. So here's an actual example. So this was just a couple months ago. I wrote a story called "Mandatory Google Gmail Integration Quietly Shelves." I don't know if anyone ever read that story, but basically it said that Google was decoupling the Google Plus sign up from Gmail, and I thought that was a big deal. I discovered that that was the case. So that was a big deal because that means that they're not really supporting Gmail or Google Plus anymore. So I wrote it up on my blog, but it was a Friday. It was like 5 o'clock, and people go home at Friday at 5 o'clock. You know what I mean? It's like how is this gonna end up in the Wall Street Journal? So I shared it on my social, my Google Plus, my Twitter, and all that stuff. And here's one little trick I did. It's the hack. I have this secret influencer list of 1,666 influencers, like all the journalists at the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNET, et cetera. And basically, I just promoted it, not to everyone on Twitter, but to my influencer list. This is people-based marketing. And within 2 hours, the story showed up on Marketing Lines. This is at the bottom, brought to our attention by Larry Kim at the Wordstream blog and confirmed by Google, blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But what got even more interesting was by Saturday, okay, it showed up in VentureBeat, Register, and Engadget. By Monday, it was in over 250 different publications. So that's very interesting. A key takeaway here: in order to get people to get content to get picked up by the media, you need interesting and influential people to see that content. So identity marketing allows you to kind of increase the chances. This is very typical where you have like, a couple hundred posts. Most of them do crappy, like no shares, and a few of them do like 2,000 shares. Like people-based marketing will increase the chances of an average post getting 400 shares to getting maybe 1,600 shares, just because you're getting it in front of interesting people. So isn't that interesting? Like you can do this with PPC marketing. I think this is a very interesting use case that's just not possible in search advertising alone. Where it gets really interesting is that you can overlay demographics. So in Facebook, it's like, fine, you have a big list. Like I have a list of 500,000 search marketers like on my house list. That's a lot of names. Like where it gets interesting is I can like upload that list and then overlay key demos. Like I only want people between this age who are above a certain income level who who have purchased business services in the last 90 days. Like that's a really interesting. Like so it's like when you overlay identity plus user demographics, it's like finding a needle in the haystack kind of machine, so that the key is not to spend lots of money on pay-per-click marketing. It's to spend as little as possible on just kind of the most qualified audience, if that makes sense. God, I mentioned I was kind of interested to quality score. Well, did you know that there's a quality score in the Google Display Network? So the Google Display Network, that's like that federation of like 2 million websites, like CNN and all the Google properties and all that stuff. Well, basically, I did some research on a couple $1 billion, and what I found was there's a relationship between sort of the click-through rate of those display ads and what you actually pay for those clicks. All right. Now, Google, if you go to their help site, it does say that there's a quality score for Google Display Network, but they don't tell you anything about it. Other than that, they say that it exists, they don't tell you anything about how it works. Well, it's really easy to do, to reverse engineer when you have that much data. The key here is just make ads that have very, very high click-through rate, and life will be good. If you have ads with low click-through rates, life will be very, very bad. So how do you do that? This is actually very easy. 67.5% of the quote-unquote display ads on the Google Display Network aren't even real image ads. They're actually text ads that have been formatted to appear as images. You see what I mean? They're display ads, but they're not really, there are no images in there. So when I do a regression on a lot of ads, what I find is just by switching the medium from being a text ad to an image ad, you'll get over a 50% boost just on average for the click-through rates. And look at the average cost per click difference. So like for text ads, because they get such low click-through rates, like 50% lower, you're paying a lot more, versus the custom image ads that get higher click-through rates, you're paying a lot less, like 48 cents. Wow. So I wanted to give a couple tips on how to increase the click-through rates of your display ads. Basically, guys, the rule of thumb is for every 0.1% increase or decrease in click-through rate for your display ads, your cost per click will increase or decrease by 20%. That's a big deal. So how do you get those click-through rates up? Well, you can do these things with like puppies and push display ads to your offers. This is one that Marty Weintraub helped me out with. Basically, what you do is you do a path through site conversion analysis. Find out what pages are in the path of things that lead to a conversion, okay, and then make those part of your remarketing list definition. That's kind of clever. Here's another one. The conversion rates of your remarketing ads double the more you show them the ads. So like a lot of people are worried about like, oh, I only want to show them the ad 3 times and then I don't want to bother them anymore. But this is pay-per-click marketing. So like, yes, like if you show it the ad like 100 times in a day or a month, they become increasingly less likely to click on it. But those who do click on it are twice as likely to convert. And I think that's really interesting because you're only paying for clicks. So it's like you're wearing them down. And the ones who do, they're like, oh, fine, I'll get it, all right? So that's an interesting little hack. Another one has to do with pushing display ads to content rather than offers. So like, get this guide rather than, buy now, buy these shoes now, like, pushing the content first. And there's some really interesting ideas that come up here. When it comes to content, certain content does really well and certain content does really badly. But my observation here is that the types of content that does really well organically will also do well when promoted. So what you do is you take the content that does so well organically and push your display ads to those instead. Basically, the idea here is that there's certain emotions that make people click on content, and those same emotions are the ones that make people click on ads. The hack is essentially to just make your display campaigns look a little bit more like what the content marketers are doing. Like this dad supports his 13-year-old daughter, even if it means never seeing her again. Wow, I'm going to click on that. Like, I need to know what that's all about. All right, I only have like 7 minutes here. I'm going to go quick. How do you get like a lot more impressions on the Google Display Network? So this is a really quick and easy one. Basically, there's 14 different ad formats on the Google Display Network, what you need to know is that each ad format is like a different ad network. All right, so like the different sizes, they don't compete with each other. So you basically need to have that same ad replicated in different ad formats so that you're eligible to show up in all of the auctions. Basically, I did some research here. This is Wordstream research in terms of like, what if I can only do like a few ads, like because it takes forever? Those are the ones that you need to focus on in terms of like the share of impressions. These are the most popular. Okay, number 4. A crazy mobile hacks to triple your conversions. So what's this about? Well, mobile, it's 50% of searches this year. It's a big deal. And it's in some ways, it's profoundly different from desktop search in that it has this little button here. See, it says call. That is such a game changer. Do you know why? It's because it changes everything. On the left here, I have the desktop search conversion funnel where it's like they see the ad, they click on the ad, they visit your website, and then they die because once they get to your landing page, you have a 3% or 4% or 5% conversion, meaning you lost 19 out of 20 of them, okay? And then maybe 1 out of 20 turns into a captured lead, all right? The mobile conversion funnel eliminated that step altogether because they see the ad, they call the business, and now you have the lead on the phone, and you can talk to them. That's pretty interesting. So we did some research here, and basically what we're finding is that the businesses, like the value of a call is 3 times more than the value of a click to a website. So you should be getting more of those. Not only is it less leaky in terms of not losing 95% of them on a landing page, but the contact rate and the qualification rate for leads evaporate over time. So if you call these people the next day, like they signed up for something, and you call them next day, you'll only be able to get in touch with half of them. Compare with that with like getting them on the phone right at the moment when they're calling. Like you'll get all of them. And the qualification rate goes down because like they might not need that solution anymore. If maybe I was calling for different plumbers and I left a message, but then I found someone else. So mobile is actually worth a lot more than clicks. And the real weird thing about this is when I do some segmentation in my database of like how much these clicks cost. Mobile is like 30% less than the desktop click for the same keyword. It's ridiculous, and the reason is because people are confused. They don't know how to, measure the ROI of these mobile campaigns, and they think, oh, it's worthless. I'm not getting conversions or whatever, and so they bid them down. But you should be bidding them up, and that's the interesting hack. Basically, forget about. What if you don't have a mobile landing page or a mobile site? Don't worry about it. Like you're better off deleting that. There's like different. There's ways that you can just force the people to call your ad from the call extension, and that does really well. Down to number 3, Gmail ads. This is really interesting, guys. A little secret. I've spent $20,000 on this every month for the last year. It's my biggest spend in terms of my personal spends. What if I told you I could email anybody without knowing their email address? You can. It's called Gmail Promotions, and basically it's such a clever ad format. It shows up at the top of your inbox. Like people spend a lot of time in Gmail, and it looks like it's an email, but it's not an email. It's actually an ad from me, and because it looks like an email, people actually click on this 5 times more likely than they are to click on those ads on the right side. When you click on this ad, an HTML creative opens and it has like all of my information. And what's so cool about this is that you can target these ads based on who they're receiving their emails from. So like if you're a realtor working for Remax and you want to get into people's emails, inboxes of people who are looking for houses, you could target like coldwellbanker.com, and you know, that's a really clever thing. Like my little hack is I'm targeting people who get system messages from AdWords. So now down to number 2 here. 2 minutes left. YouTube TrueView Ads. Basically, it's a massive platform. You know, something like 6 billion hours spent, you know, watching YouTube videos every day. If it was a search engine, it would be the second biggest search engine of all time. This is such a cool ad format because, like, you know, if you're watching a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, like I'm into that, you know, and then they're remarketing a trip to Italy for me because I was researching that. I can skip the video and the advertiser pays nothing. So you only pay if someone watches the video. You pay nothing if they skip. So a couple hacks here. It's very interesting. So many different targeting options. I'm not going to go through them all. Another idea has to do with like going longer form. So like the top ads on YouTube are like 3 minutes long on average. So like that, because you're only paying if someone watches them, you might as well, you know, spend a little extra time and getting them to know your stuff. This is kind of interesting. YouTube video promotions will impact your organic visibility. So I don't know how much you guys do content marketing, but there's ranking factors for organic for YouTube videos, and they're all engagement factors, like how many likes, how many thumbs up, how many subscribers, you know, how many comments, how many views, you know, that kind of stuff. And by advertising your videos, you can juice those numbers. It's like you're buying your first page ranking. So like my last one here has to do with first mover advantage. There's like 1,000 new features in AdWords and all the other platforms every year. Be the first person to try them out, because here's a quick example. Post ads for Google+, like I think Google+ sucks, but anyways, the point is I tried out this dumb feature, and here's like the before and after, and all I spent was $20 to promote my Google+ page, and it went from like being a ghost town to being like this hub of activity. I couldn't believe it. So here's a summary, guys. The top 10 PPC hacks of all time. I hope you guys don't think that this is just a big tool bag of dumb hacks. There is a hidden strategic message in this list here, and that is to think big. Rather than going after like these dumb little things that take forever and give you 3 to 5% improvements, like I'm going to change the color of the button or add a period at the end of this ad or something. Go big. Look for things that will give you the 3 to 5 times increase rather than the 3 to 5% increase. And these are all 10 examples of such things. Guys, you know I'm really excited about Quality Score. Hopefully, I've convinced some of you that there may be something to this. I know there's a lot of Quality Score haters out there, but now you guys should know better. Thanks, guys, and the slides are there. Thanks. Let's hand it over to David.
All right. Thank you guys for having me. It's a tough act to follow, Larry. And I appreciate you guys all staying for Larry's presentation. I know you all came for me, right? Okay, good. Just checking. All right. I'm going to talk, Larry's presentation was fantastic. I'm sure you guys' head's still spinning. I'm going to talk at a little higher level, and I want to just talk about a trend that I've observed that I think, I'll just go back to Larry's point about think big. This is a big trend that's happening in search engine marketing. And I'm going to tell you why it's happening, I'm going to tell you how it's happening, and I'm going to tell you what you can do about it. And the trend is that keywords are dying. The currency of search engine marketing since GoTo came out with pay-per-click advertising in 1998 or whenever it was, what has been keywords, and they're slowly going away. So let's talk about it. Okay, so why kill the golden goose? And I'm going to usually refer to Google in this, but you can assume that whatever Google's doing, Bing usually is not too far behind. I'll give you 3 reasons. One is that keywords are inefficient. Keywords for Google cost them money. When you, as a search engine marketer, make a smart decision to buy a very granular keyword, you're costing Google money. And I'll show you mathematically how that happens. Secondly, well, I said the granular one, keywords are inefficient in the sense that for the So if the smart advertisers are going to be the ones who find the very long tail keywords, I don't want to say the dumb advertisers, but the, let's call it below average, going back to Larry's comment, folks who don't know how to find keywords are not buying as many keywords as they should. So that's costing Google money as well. And the third thing is that I think that the online marketing ecosystem is turning into a audience-based system. So it's no longer about what you're searching for, it's about who you're searching for. Again, I'll reference Larry's presentation. He talked about custom audiences on Facebook. That's a great example where, and Gmail sponsored promotions. It's not about what, it's about the who. And Google, I think, is trying to build ad products that reflect that new reality so that the advertisers of the future, frankly, understand the Google ecosystem and continue to spend money on it. So why kill keywords? Why does this cost money? This is a made-up example, so it's hard. It would be hard to find an actual example. Let's take the word blue widget, and let's think about 6 or 7 variations of blue widget. 10 years ago, you could buy best blue widget online made with Teflon. And if you were the only person buying that keyword, theoretically you'd pay 5 cents, 3 cents, whatever. What's happened is Google has gradually eliminated the ability to buy these long tail keywords. And I'll show you how they've done it. But if you look at this example above, let's say this is the 10 years ago example where people have come up with all these different variations of keywords. And as you get farther down the tail, the cost per click decreases because there's less competition. Below, what happens if Google just takes all those advertisers and puts them into one keyword, blue widget? It matches all the long tail terms on the the head term. What ends up happening is you may have a slight reduction in click-through rate, but overall Google makes more money because there's more competition and fewer auctions. So this is if you want to take the approach, Google had this mantra in there, they filed to go public, do no evil. If you think that what the no should actually be spelled K-N-O-W, do no evil, then that's what's going on here. So how is Google killing keywords? And I call it a death by 1,000 cuts. I'm going to walk through all the different things that you guys are probably already using, and you don't even realize that you are slowly moving away from a keyword-based economy. Broad match expansion. So I just showed this example of blue widget versus best blue widget online, whatever. This is the word mortgage rates. I always like to use the word mortgage. It's one of the, I think, in fact, Larry's presentation showed it's one of the highest grossing keywords for Google. So I typed in the word mortgage rates. It's a couple weeks ago, and I see Quicken and Lendify or something like that as the top results. Now I then went in and I typed in, I believe I did this on an incognito browser, just for anyone who's thinking that there might be a session-based query result here. I typed in best online mortgage rates, good credit. So lots of, in the parlance of a search engine, lots of tokens, lots of ability to find very granular advertisers. And guess what? 2 of the top 3 are the exact same ones who bought the broad term mortgage rates. So then I said, okay, let's try a geo-modifier, California mortgage rates. Well, now at least the third result, which is Lendify, has got some sort of geo-modified ad text in it. But ultimately, the first and the third result are the same advertisers who were showing up on the head term and on the tail term. So it is possible that these advertisers are incredibly gifted at keyword expansion and also are just hell-bent on being first, top of page for all these different type of keywords. But I'm pretty sure that's not the case. I'm pretty sure what's happening is what I described, which is that Google is taking more and more long tail terms and matching them to the head tail terms and reducing the number of auctions and increasing the number of advertisers. So not necessarily killing keywords per se, but certainly killing your ability to find these secret keywords that no one else has found. I'll give you a specific mortgage example because I used to be in the mortgage space. When I started working in mortgage SEM, it was 2004, and what I did was I went to the Census Bureau, and the Census Bureau has a bunch of zip files and Excel files, and you can download every city in the United States. And I downloaded them all, and then I did some merging and just to make sure that I was not getting duplicates, because there's a lot of Arlingtons and there's probably 20 Portlands. I ended up with something like 22,000 cities in the United States, and I appended the word mortgage rates, refinance rate, home loan to the names of these cities. And guess what? I remember there was a town, I'm from Iowa originally, there's a town in Iowa called Adair, Iowa, population like 30. I was the only person, I think, in the history of online marketing who bought the word Adair, Iowa mortgage rates, but I was getting those clicks for 5 cents a click and people were clicking. That doesn't happen today, and that's because what Google has done is not only have they expanded broad match and the algorithm, but in this particular instance, if you go into your settings in AdWords, I believe the default is for geography, show my ads if someone uses a geomodifier or if someone is in the physical location of the keyword. So if someone has bought the word, someone is in California and they type in California mortgage rates, an advertiser who bought the word mortgage rates is still going to show up on the word California mortgage rates because Google has defaulted them in based on the physical location of the advertiser. So again, what Google's doing here is they're saying, okay, well, and again, you can look at this as a do no evil or do no evil, depending on how you spell the middle part of it. On the good side, Google's saying, look, we are inferring that someone who lives in California wants to see an ad about California mortgage rates, even though they didn't specifically type in California mortgage rates. On the bad side, Google's saying, hey, why are we letting these people who are smart enough to add the geomodifier into their keyword only show up and save money? Let's just bundle everyone else in as well. Again, reduces the value of the individual keyword. You guys have probably seen this. I don't even know what they call it, but the search form fill out box. What's it called? Search suggestion. Thank you. It's been so long now that I don't even know what it's called anymore. But what does this do? By nature, it reduces the uniqueness of the queries. So every time, and I haven't done any data research on this, but if you think about it, it makes sense. Someone starts where I read mortgage, they may have been going for a totally different direction, but when they're presented with the top 5 choices, they're going to migrate to something that Google has suggested to them. So again, another example, and again, this is an example that's probably beneficial to users. I mean, I use it all the time. It saves me time when I'm typing something in, but it also reduces the number of keywords that are being shown that are available to bid on. Close match variance. How many people here love close match variance? Everyone, right? Close match variance, for those of you who don't know, I think it was about a year ago. What does this say? August? Google said, you know what, all you guys buying exact match, we have found that that actually exact match isn't as good, is actually costing you guys conversions, and that's because you're not finding all the different variations. So we're going to start adding things that are like your exact match into your keyword set. So if you had bought the word San Francisco mortgage rates, maybe now you're going to start showing up for San Francisco, California mortgage rates. As an advertiser, didn't feel very good because you're thinking, well, I bought this exact match term because I know this specific term works for me. And Google's saying, yeah, well, we know better than you. We're going to show you some additional queries. There are some ways around this. You can expand your negative keyword list into infinity to make sure that all the different variations that Google is matching you against are not showing up. But at the end of the day, this does the exact same thing as the broad match expansion and the geo modifier. It puts more people into the auction. So more and more, there's concentration of folks on every keyword. Enhanced campaigns, another thing everyone loves, right? So enhanced campaigns used to be that you could say, okay, I'm going to, this is on the left, this is what it was like when it first started. And it was actually pretty cool. It's not a big hack to use Larry's terminology, but it was a cool hack because you could say, as an example, when Android first came out, Android was significantly cheaper for the consumer than iPhone. So not to mention the fact that people who had iPhone, well, now 6, are more affluent than people who have iPhone 5. So if you're selling luxury hotels, luxury vacations to Tahiti, you would exclude Android. You might even exclude iPhone 4 and 5, but you'd keep iPhone 6. You might even conclude that people on Verizon are not as as affluent as people on AT&T. People on AT&T, like myself, are too lazy to switch because we signed up for it when we got our iPhone, and then we forgot, and they charged us a lot of money. So I'm like a perfect target for a Tahiti vacation that's really expensive. So I think that's all very valuable, and it's good for the advertisers to be able to choose now. Now, Google's argument was two things. One is there are a lot of advertisers who are just avoiding mobile like the plague. We need to help them get into we're helping you get into the mobile world. Second of all, this is getting too confusing with the Internet of Things and wearables and 18 different operating systems and 5 different phone manufacturers. We just can't possibly create a user interface that makes sense for advertisers. Now, again, you can sort of debate to what degree that was the intention, to what degree it was just to reduce choice from the perspective of advertisers. But the result of this is a lot of people have been pushed into mobile, but we also have less control over where we're buying ads. So we had in the pre-enhanced campaigns world, we had this opportunity to buy very granular traffic across, not just across keywords, but against devices, operating system, and carrier. Now we have a choice. Yes or no, do you want to show up on mobile? So another example of where granularity is being taken away. PLAs. This is probably the biggest example of the change from a keyword-based world to in this case, a feed-based world. So PLAs, I still refer to them as PLAs. I just think it sounds better than Google Shopping, but they changed the name, so it is Google Shopping now. If you're a retailer, you upload a feed of all your listings, of all your products, and Google just runs what they think is relevant against keywords, keyword searches. So you have some control over keywords. You can negative match keywords that you don't like. But I've talked to the product managers on shopping, and they said, no. I said I would love it if you could give us a report that shows the actual SKU that's that's showing up, and the keyword or the query that's related to that SKU. And said, no, you're thinking about it wrong. Don't think about keywords. Don't think about queries. It's all about the right products and the right images, and we're not going to do that. We want you to avoid thinking about the keywords in this case. Well, okay, that's fine, but at the end of the day, and again, I go back to Larry's presentation. He had the jackpot of the 5 iPhones in a row. This takes away all of the control, really, from the advertiser, and all you're left with doing is trying to optimize your image, I guess. But what's happening is, and the good news is, again, I'm trying to be objective, half full, half empty here. The good news is that typically speaking, the ROAS for retailers is probably about 3 to 5 times better than a text ad. So these do work. The bad news is that if you were a retail search engine marketer who had been really successful at coming up with really clever ad text and to differentiate why you should buy a Nikon camera from you and not from Amazon, that's gone. And what we're seeing is more and more, and this is an example, this ad is showing up at the top of the page. So if you've seen in your AdWords reports, you have a top versus side click-through rate and conversion rate analysis chart that you can find. Typically speaking, it's like 10 times greater click-through rate at the top of the page. So Google's putting their money where their mouth is, and they're saying, okay, text ads, yeah, they're still relevant for display. Keywords, still relevant. But most of what's happening in the retail space is now feed-driven. And by the way, Google acquired a company called Channel Intelligence. They'll do this for you. They'll charge you, but they'll do it for you. So another example of where the keyword is no longer, almost completely irrelevant in this example. Dynamic search ads. How many people have tried dynamic search ads? Anyone? Okay, a couple people. So the concept of dynamic search ads, it would be, to quote Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. Add your URL in, and we're going to create ads for you, and we're going to find which keywords to buy for you. Or really, we're not even going to find keywords. We're just going to show you wherever we feel like it's relevant. These actually can work pretty well. Again, it's not like this is like bad in the sense that it's performing poorly, but there's no doubt that this is not a keyword-based campaign. It's a URL-based campaign. So you've got your PLAs, which are feed-based. You've got your DSA, which are URL-based, and now you've got and all the other things that Google's doing to reduce the importance of keywords in general. Hopefully, you guys are seeing the trend here. Now, I had to get a Larry article in here, prolific writer that he is. So there was a point about a year ago, almost exactly, where Google announced that they were going to make some changes to how they provided search query data to third-party tools like a Wordstream. And I apologize, Larry, I didn't read your whole argument about why this hasn't actually changed, but what I will say is it's not, Larry's point was it's not as bad as it sounds. They're not taking away query data entirely, and I think that's true. But it feels a little bit like we're frogs in an ever-boiling pot of water. Google has removed query data from for SEOs. They've at least limited data, and you can respond to this later, for third-party API partners. They have not yet taken it away from the query data, the search query report that I'll show you guys later in AdWords. But it seems to me that it's not inconceivable that this is a slow progression where, again, we're frogs boiling in water. They're slowly taking away our ability to get query-level data. Query-level data is sort of the lifeblood of the way we do search engine marketing. We're constantly looking at keywords that we buy, and we're matching those to looking at the queries that drove those keywords, and then we're isolating the winners and getting rid of the losers. That's kind of our whole philosophy. We have at 3Q, we have something called alpha beta account structure, which some of you may have heard of, that works on this. If queries go away, if we no longer have access to queries, we're left sort of guessing what Google is matching a keyword against. So I'm not saying that this is going to happen for sure, but certainly there's a progression where Google is giving less and less query data to advertisers, and this impacts your ability to make smart keyword decisions. How about removing advertisers altogether? Could Google do this? Well, Google acquired a company called ITA about 5 years ago for about $700 million. ITA is, as far as I can understand it, a giant aggregator of travel data. They have all the hotels in the world. They have all the flights. They have all the car rental places, etc. I did this search from my hometown airport of Cedar Rapids, Iowa to O'Hare, ORD. And guess what shows up right below the ads? A sponsored listing that shows some flights that I can use. This is not, as far as I know, this is not something that Delta and United inserted in here. They may have provided their feed data to Google. This is Google's ITA data, where Google is basically saying, well, we're the advertiser now, and Delta and United, you can get we'll charge you an affiliate commission or a cost per click or something, but we're running the show. You're not controlling which keywords you're buying. We're doing this for you. And by the way, Google has tried this in the mortgage space, and there's been suggestions that they would try it in any area where you think there could be a comparative experience. So, buying air tickets is a fairly commoditized process. So why have advertisers at all? Why not have Google as sort of the giant affiliate channel that everyone else can just pay money to, and you get your results you get are the results you get. So you may think I'm a conspiracy theorist here, but the summary that I'm trying to drive here is there are a lot of things happening in AdWords right now that are not favorable to keywords. So long tail getting crushed. Device-based optimization, much more limited than it used to be. Keyword-less units appearing across all of advertising. Keyword-less optimization, don't even bother with keywords or any optimization happening. And then the threat that they remove data entirely and that you don't even have query level data to make smart decisions. So that's my thesis of what's happening. And by the way, I've talked to, I won't say who, but I've talked to some very senior people in Google, and I said, is Google trying to kill keywords? And the comment I got was, he said, well, the person said, well, I just think there's a better way to connect advertisers and consumers than keywords. Maybe so, but that to me was a pretty strong admission, if you will, that keywords are much less popular in the Google ecosystem than they were when Google started. So what are we going to do? What are we all going to do in this new reality of a keywordless SEM, if that happens? I'll give you my 3 ultimate hacks for this particular instance. Number 1, start mining your data while you have it. So one of the things that Google has provided, which is I think the most awesome part of AdWords, is the query report. If you go to keywords, you go to details, search terms, you can get a list of every single query that Google is matching to your keywords. And Just to understand the difference, a keyword is a marketing fiction. It's something that you buy as an advertiser. A query is something that someone actually searches for. Not only that, they have this ability to segment that data further with a bunch of different segments: device, network, day, time. So I recommend that you go to your accounts and you just download all your query data and do it like once a month. In the event that someday it's not there, at least you have some historical data that you can use to be smart about your keyword decisions in the future. The second thing is start understanding your audiences. A lot of what Google, I think, is trying to do is they're trying to get you to think less about keywords and more about who is searching. Who are they? Where are they? Why should you care about them behaviorally? The two things that I recommend that are helpful from that perspective, one is the dimensions, the display network in Google. They have some really good demographic and psychographic data that you can mine, and it's free as long as you're running display campaigns. And then, of course, Google Analytics, which not only has just information, basic psychographic and demographic information, they're starting to layer behavioral data in as well, and they're trying to infer something about the personalities of the people who are using your site. And then the last thing, and again, Larry talked about this a little bit with Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, is to start thinking beyond SEM. I've made the argument that we live in a wide tail world, not a long tail world, which means that we have to go a mile wide and an inch deep instead of an inch wide and a mile deep. I still believe there's a great value to having SEM expertise, and there's a great value to SEM experts. But I would look at it as almost like SEM is your moat, is your castle, and to protect your ability to be a great marketer, you have to build a moat around your castle. And that moat consists of alternatives and emerging channels for SEM. So Larry talked about native advertising. I've talked to people who have said they're spending more on native advertising than they are in search now. There's specific mobile units, there's compared to shopping engines, there's paid social. So if search is changing, make sure you're changing with it, but also make sure you're aware of all the different other channels that are out there. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening.
Awesome. Thanks, David. So questions, anyone? I think, Scott, you have the microphone? Perfect. Anybody have questions? By a show of hands, Scott will bring the microphone to you, and don't be shy. All right, over here. Oh, Scott's heading back there already. Oh, who won? That's a question I have.
Thanks for the presentations. They were very edifying. Larry, you had mentioned something when you were talking about the click-to-call button, which we work with at our agency quite a bit. You said there are ways to force people to click on that click-to-call button. If there are clear, cut, and dried ways aside from altering the copy of the ads, I would sure like to know them.
Sure. There's historically the way to do that is in the click-to-call setup. One of the options is to it says you can make it so that if they click on the ad headline, okay, even though that's like a text headline, that it'll pop up the call button, like the call thing. Now, last week, Google also released a new campaign format. It's called the call-only campaign format. And so that's also an even better way of doing it because like the problem with click-to-call is that those only show up in the first two positions. So if your ad, the ad rank falls and you're in the third or fourth spot at the bottom of the page, then the extension doesn't even show. So the call extension, the call only campaign is a way to make it so that you don't pay for any desktop traffic, just calls.
Thank you. And, he's going over there. We'll get you next.
Thanks. So Larry, on that right there, you said that you wouldn't pay for the traffic at all that goes to the website. So does that mean then the landing page optimization isn't part of the quality score anymore, which it is to some degree right now, isn't it?
So earlier in the presentation, I kind of reverse engineered how quality score worked. And I think if you read the Google literature, they would have you believe that like landing page quality is like a third of the equation. I think it's like not that at all. I think it's a binary. It's like provided that your landing page is plausibly related to the keyword that you're bidding on, then you get a pass. Okay, and if it's like you're sending to something ridiculously different, like it's a bait and switch, then it's a fail. So because like I didn't see a big deal like in terms of the. I just think the quality score component for landing pages is much inflated in terms of the literature. But I did want to talk about landing page optimization for mobile, okay? So landing page, what is landing page optimization for mobile if I'm telling you to not even bother sending them to a mobile landing page, right? Does that make sense? So what is landing page for mobile if I'm saying just have them call you? Landing page for optimization for mobile is your call center training. It's training those guys who pick up the phone to be able to better interact with these people and address the objections and be able to make these sales. It's like call center training is the new mobile landing page optimization. So do that.
Perfect. And Scott, there's another question over here. That's obviously for companies that take phone calls, right? If you don't take phone calls, I guess.
My question is, if your website is not entirely mobile friendly, is there a reason why you would really want to advertise on the mobile platform or for mobile ads if you're directing people to a site that's really not going to convert?
Yeah, I would say first of all, Larry's suggestion about being able to send people directly to click to call is a good suggestion. The second question, or second thing I would say is not necessarily answering the question, but you have to make your site mobile friendly. The data that we're seeing is at the low end, 35% of traffic is mobile, and at the high end, it's 60 to 70%, depending on your vertical. So, and there are some very, very cheap / free tools that will get you a mobile optimized site. There's one that Google actually partnered with called, I'm forgetting the name, but if you start searching around like on the AdWords site or the analytics site, you'll find that there are Duda Mobile, where it's literally free. They'll build you a free, not great site, but it's a site that you can get optimized. You can optimize your site instantly on Duda Mobile. So, I think there's separate issues about does mobile traffic work for your business. I think most advertisers are still struggling with conversion rates on mobile. Someone was asking me what's the conversion rate for e-commerce on mobile versus desktop, and I think someone said, well, it's we sort of try to get 2% conversion rate on desktop. On mobile, we're happy with 0.5%. So there's other issues other than not having a good mobile site that you have to figure out. But I think we're all at the point now where if you're not figuring out a mobile strategy, you're sticking your head in the sand and you're going to be in trouble. You want to comment on that at all?
I agree with everything here. I would be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe even I certainly wouldn't hold back your mobile strategy if you didn't have a mobile site. I mean, Wordstream doesn't even have a mobile site, although mobile is only 8% of our traffic. So I wouldn't. Don't hold it back. It's like a lot of the reasons why people thought that they needed a mobile site from 2 or 3 or 4 years ago are no longer true. This idea that mobile phones are so slow. Well, now it's like my phone is faster than my desktop. It's like, or that the screen is so small. Well, you got doubled in size in the last 3 years. So the trend here is towards more parity. There's less of a gap, and so I think I'm not going to say that you don't need a mobile site, but I think that the how badly you need it is kind of waning, if that makes sense.
It's a question in the very back there. Do we know who won, Larry?
Yes, Francis. Congratulations. I'll email you a thing here. Okay.
Francis, congratulations.
This is a question for Larry. I was just curious if you run text ads on Google's display network anymore. We've stopped or not stopped completely, but I find the quality is so low, volume is so high, and it's usually gets a bunch of junk. And so I'm curious if you personally run text ads on Google's display network anymore.
I think you shouldn't. Like there's that there's a tax of like, you're going to pay 3 or 4 times more for those clicks. If there's a huge tax in terms of penalty, it's almost not worth doing it. It's such a punitive, the quality score for those low click-through rate text ads. I wouldn't. But like there's an ad builder in AdWords that you can kind of visually create these new ads, and it's pretty simple. And even just a simple image ad is better than text.
I was just wondering, what is your opinion in using SCAG, single keyword ad groups, in terms of capturing and promoting unicorns?
I did some research on number of keywords per ad group or number of keywords per account, versus like their click-through rates. I saw no correlation there. So like this idea that it didn't have anything to do with the number of keywords that you were targeting. It had more to do with the ad copy and the emotional triggers that really like shock people into clicking. So like, the number of like SCAG or whatever you're calling it, like that was not dispositive. Like that didn't, like it didn't change the game. It was more. It had more to do with the ad copy.
I'll just add something to that. The structure of AdWords is such that your text ads can only be related to one ad group. So if you have several keywords that are similar in terms of the intent of the user, then they can show up in an ad group. But I think that if you had an example of California mortgage rates and Nebraska mortgage rates, with the best emotional triggers in the ad. And by the way, I've always said that the 4 human emotions that trigger performance are fear, greed, vanity, and exclusivity. So those work, but it also works to include the keyword intent in the ad. So if you can add the word, get ridiculously almost free California mortgage rates today in one ad group, and the other one says Nebraska, I think that when you can combine the granularity of the intent with the emotions, you're going to do better. So from that perspective, the answer may not be one keyword in an ad group, but certainly make sure that your keywords are very narrowly clustered.
There's another question in the back left there.
I was actually just wondering, you spoke a lot about emotional connection in ads, and there's a lot of studies that say you should show pictures of your product in your ads, and then there's a lot of school of thought saying, you mentioned puppies, for example, or ads with faces do better. What are your thoughts on that?
Cheers.
I think it really depends on the types of keywords that you're going after. Like the puppies and stuff like that, I thought that they did well for lead gen. For product type searches, of course you need to show the product. Like the puppies doesn't really help if they're searching for a dishwasher or whatever. I think it really, the context matters.
Well, there's a book by Chris Goward. I don't know if you guys know him. He's up in Vancouver, about landing page optimization, and the title of the book is "You Should Test That." And I think that's the answer. I mean, I've always said, and with respect to keywords are zeros and ones to me. If the word Britney Spears sells mortgages, I'll buy the word Britney Spears. And the same is true with ad text. I mean, there are some psychological truths like, people typically perform better. Having the person look at your call to action as opposed to looking away from your call to action in the ad performs better. But the beauty of online marketing is for $100 you can do a test, an A/B test very quickly and get great results, and you should.
All kinds of hands popping up.
Hi, Larry. I was wondering, you talked a little bit about YouTube. I wonder if you could elaborate on that a little bit. Were you talking about the text ads or in just the pre-roll video versions? Because we found that for branding and awareness, YouTube is great, but for driving traffic to your site, it's not.
Yes, I think that it's more of a higher funnel type of advertising as opposed to direct response. I mean, just to be clear, there's two different ad formats on YouTube. One is the text ads that show up overlaid on the video. That's just Google Display Network managed placements, and the other one, that's the TrueView video ad that shows up before. What's so interesting about those TrueView video ads, in my opinion, is that there's such a huge inventory of searches available, like video views on YouTube, like 6 billion hours or something like that. Like, advertisers aren't really soaking up that inventory the way that they're going after like the search keywords. And so like you can get those video views for like 35 cents a view, because you only pay if someone views. So like to your point of like they're not converting as well. Well, if it doesn't convert by like it converts 1/5 as well, okay, but it costs like 1/20th the cost or something like that. Like if you're in a competitive vertical, you're way ahead. So just you got to consider the fact that these are much cheaper than keyword clicks as well.
Hi, Larry. I'm wondering, in the research that you did to show like what is kind of the average click-through rate, and you said you analyzed a ton of ads, I'm wondering if those were from a particular industry or if it was B2C or B2B or kind of what you were looking at there.
So all of the slides that I showed were just aggregated across all the industries, but I have published research like this on my Wordstream blog where I segmented into like e-commerce or B2B or finance, and the same numbers hold up. Like they're different values, but the idea that the ads that are above average have higher click-through, higher quality scores and all that stuff, that all held regardless of industry. It's just on my blog. There's a lot of just search for quality score, e-commerce, Larry Kim or something like that, and you'll see all the graphs.
We got time for maybe one more question. I think she was the last one right over there.
So David, you talked about how Google seems to be matching more long-tail terms to head terms to consolidate auctions. Sort of seems like that would compromise user experience for Google searchers. Has there been any sort of analysis or research done on that?
So I actually asked that question to Google as well, and I'll address it in two parts. First of all, my feeling is that Google, in the mind of the consumer, is search, and so it doesn't matter whether the user experience declines or not. People are not going to go to Bing. I mean, some people will, but I hate to say that because Bing and Yahoo, Bing in particular, spent a lot of time building a good algorithm, but they have such a strong brand that it's not going to negatively impact Google's market share. Now, the one thing that Google said that I thought was very interesting is they said that their counter to that was they said, oh, that's not true because we actually don't only look at the monetization of that session, we look at the likely monetization of future sessions. So in other words, Google is optimizing not just for to make the most money on that particular click, but to ensure that the user comes back in the future and clicks on ads again. So the way that I would look at it is Google doesn't have to worry about people not using Google. They have to worry about people not clicking on ads. So that is the balance that they're looking at. And you could, it's at the end of the day, it's very clever because it's not just about the monetization of the ad today. It's about ensuring monetization in the future. So they do consider that, but they're obviously balancing it in a way that ensures that they can ratchet up the prices but still get a lot of clicks in the future.
There's a built-in safety valve there. If you have a crap ad that no one's clicking on, it'll get a low quality score, it'll get low impression share, and we'll just stop showing.
Awesome. Let's give another round of hand for Larry and David, guys. Thank you.